Welcome, everyone, and thank you for standing by. I'd like to inform all parties that today's call will be recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I'd like to inform all participants that there will be a Q&A session. At that time, if you'd like to ask a question, you may press star 1. I'd now like to turn the call over to your host. You may begin whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us virtually from NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. I'm Sandra Jones, and thank you so much for your patience this morning as we work through a couple of technical difficulties. We are here today to discuss the ongoing investigation of an external leak that occurred December 14th from the Roscosmos Soyuz MS-22 spacecraft docked to the Rasyet module of the International Space Station. We're going to start off by hearing from a couple of folks off the top. They'll give their opening remarks, and then we'll move into our question and answer session with those in the room, rather on the phone bridge, excuse me. If you're on the phone, please press star 1 to add your name to our queue and ask a question. So I'm going to start off by introducing our participants today, and then I'll hand it over for opening remarks. So joining us today are Joel Montalbano, the manager of the International Space Station program here at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, and Sergei Krikalev, the executive director for Human Spaceflight Program at Roscosmos. Joel?
Hey, thank you, Sandra, and thank you, everybody, for your patience. I know we got started a little late today. Let's see, just give you a status of ISS, and then we'll talk about the leak. But just approximately 7:30 Central Time this morning, we opened the hatch, and we began another EVA to install an augmented solar array on board the International Space Station. This was one of the arrays that was brought up on SpaceX 26. As you know, earlier in December, we installed an array on the 3A channel. Today's array work is on the 4A channel. And outside we have Frank Rubio and Josh Cassada. Right now, when looking at the timeline, things continue to be on time. And if we continue and stay on this pace, we're looking to roll out that solar array approximately 1 o'clock Central or so. Now, that may move a little bit, but everything was going on track when I left the control center just a few minutes ago. This spacewalk was scheduled for yesterday, but as many of you know, we had an orbital debris notification, and we had to do an altitude adjustment of the space station. We did a meter per second altitude adjustment yesterday, and we moved the EVA. There was nothing that was requiring the EVA to occur yesterday, so moving out 1 day and allowing the flight control team to focus on the debris and make sure space station was safe was the right answer, and so that's why we moved the EVA 1 day. Looking forward, the SpaceX 26 mission continues to just do very well. The vehicle's in good shape. Right now, the planning date for undocking is January 9th. Now, as we get a little closer, we'll refine that. We'll be watching weather, but that's going well. The science experiments that were brought up continue to go well on that mission. In fact, just last week, we started a vegetable experiment with tomatoes, where the crew will grow tomatoes on board. It's about an 80-day experiment, and they will be able to eat the tomatoes when they're finished. This is important as we look at going past low Earth orbit and do long-duration deep space missions. Be able to grow food on orbit is a critical need of the team. Focusing more on today and the purpose, last Wednesday evening, approximately 6:45 Central, we had detected a cooling leak on board the space station. The Russian cosmonauts were preparing for an EVA. They had not exited the vehicle, and so there was no contamination concerns. Mission Control Center Moscow canceled that EVA, and the team focused on better understanding the cooling leak. Since then, the Mission Control Center Houston and the Mission Control Center Moscow teams have been talking on a regular basis to understand what happened, the cause of what happened, and the future steps. And with that, let me hand it over to Sergei Krikalev. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. And just continue what Joel said, that during preparation to review, we found a leak in external coolant loop on Soyuz spacecraft, and monitoring this leak with the cameras, we saw some explosion of coolant from radiator. We stop EVA, return crew back to the vehicle, and start to estimate what really is happening. We look through telemetry, recorded telemetry, and we prove that we lose all coolant from radiator pretty quickly. The external rejection of heat from Soyuz was terminated, and we found approximate position of this damage on radiator. At this point, the station was going through a meteor shower, but after extra analysis, we found that penetration of radiator happened from different directions. It's basically an off-starboard side of the vehicle in respect to direction of flight. So losing this coolant is not pose any danger on the station. And now we are doing thermal analysis to see if we can use this vehicle to do nominal re-entry with the crew on this Soyuz, or we need to send a rescue vehicle to the station in future.
Thank you, Sergei. So next up, we'll hear from the folks on the line that do have a question. So first up on our dial-in line is Jeff Faust with Space News.
Good morning. A question. It sounds like from previous reports you expect to make a decision sometime next week on the course of action regarding Soyuz MS-22. I wanted to confirm if that schedule is correct, and if so, if you decide you need to send up the next Soyuz early uncrewed, what that means for future crew rotations to the space station. Thanks.
Can you repeat the question, because line is not very clean, so maybe try to speak a little slower.
Yeah, my question is, do you expect to make a decision next week on what to do with Soyuz MS-22? And if you need to send up a rescue vehicle without a crew, what that means for future crew rotations to the station?
If we wouldn't be able to return crew back in a nominal way, and right now we are doing thermal analysis to see if it's safe to do it for the crew. So if it's not going to be safe, then next spacecraft that's supposed to fly in the middle of March for crew rotation would be sent up unmanned to have healthy vehicle on board the station to be able to rescue crew, and further flight plans need to be readjusted.
Okay, great. Our next question comes from Joey Roulette with Reuters.
Hey, thanks. Question for Sergei. Was the leaked coolant, did that damage any outside systems on the space station or cause any concerns that there might be corrosion from what leaked from Soyuz? And also, I guess this is for Joel or Sergei, if something on the station happens that would warrant safe haven procedures while you guys are evaluating the health of Soyuz 22, what would the plan be for that? What's the I guess contingency plan since one of the safe lifeboats is kind of out of service now? Thanks.
May I start from safe haven? Station is now safe haven for us. For our flight rules, if a vehicle is unable to return back crew safely, it's supposed to be returned back in automatic mode with no crew. And for this period of time, crew is staying on board the station. So it's basically most safe scenario. As I said, we are doing analysis, and assess the risk for nominal reentry, and if nominal reentry is dangerous or not safe enough, I would say, then we will either send the actual vehicle to have a good spacecraft for the crew. And for period of time before we send this vehicle, we keep assessing risk, and we have several ways of reentry. Beyond nominal reentry, we have reentry in analog mode, expedited reentry. So it depends on current situation and extra emergency on board the station. We probably do some kind of expedited return using this Soyuz if we need to leave the station.
And Joey, on the coolant, the direction of the leak was aft and starboard, and it boils off very quickly. And so we're not concerned with any contaminants left on board. In fact, that was a discussion we had before the spacewalk, and the teams had looked at it, and there's no issue with contamination.
Gotcha. And one quick follow-up question on that. In the video, it looked like the spraying was kind of going in multiple uncontrolled directions. Was it just coming from like a single hole that was fixed, or was there like a hose that was loose or something? Or I don't know.
The coolant was coming from.
And actually, our first.
Go ahead, Sergei.
Go ahead, Bill.
It was a single hole. The teams are off looking at. We're trying to get better video and imagery of that hole. So right now we haven't confirmed that it's an MMOD, a micrometeorite debris, or some other type of failure. We're trying to get imagery to get us some better information. As Sergei said, we did look at the meteor showers that were occurring, and both the trajectory team in Houston and the trajectory team in Moscow confirmed it was not from the meteor showers. It was in the wrong direction. And so we got some work to do with imagery to better understand if it was a meteorite hit or if it was a hardware issue. And that work is in front of us.
Thanks.
Thank you. Our next question is
one of our first.
Go ahead, Sergei.
Let me continue. Our first analysis, because we knew the place of the damage not very precise, we started to do engineering drawing to see if it can be, what kind of reason can be for this leak. So we did several assessments, didn't find anything, and finally, with the help of our colleagues from NASA, we got an image showing that actually we have damage of the surface of radiator. Our specialists looked very closely, and they confirmed that having this damage, small pipe with coolant was also damaged, and size of the leak was relatively small. It's less than 1 millimeter in diameter, but it was enough for all coolant to leak the loop.
Thank you both. Our next question comes from Gina Sensuri with ABC News.
Good morning. I know you can't detect, you can detect only certain sizes of meteorites, but how large or small would a piece be to puncture a hole in the Soyuz? Do you have any data on that?
I can start, Sergei.
To estimate the size of the particle that damaged the Soyuz, we need to do some investigation, but damage on the surface is about 4 millimeters in diameter, and damage of the pipe that hold the coolant liquid is less than 1 millimeter finally. But external crater is about 4 millimeters in diameter.
All right, our next question comes from Todd Shields with Bloomberg News.
Hi, I apologize. It could be I have a bad line, but could you confirm that what I've heard is that right now you all are evaluating the consequences of the leak and have made no decision on whether to send the Soyuz early? Is that what we've been saying? Go ahead, please.
To whom are you directing your question?
Sergei, I guess. I think he was speaking to that.
So as I said, we don't have final decision. Can we return crew safely by this vehicle, damaged vehicle or not? We do our assessment, and we have basically two options. One is we return crew back on this vehicle if it's safe enough, and it's basically thermal analysis we need to do to see how rapidly temperature is going to rise in equipment compartment, in crew compartment, and if we see that temperature would be and thermal mode would be inside of nominal limits, we would be able to do nominal reentry. In case we see that risk for the crew is too high, then our next crew, as I said, was scheduled to fly in middle of March. We start to see if we can expedite the launch of this vehicle, and it can be sent up a little earlier, but not much earlier. It's about 2-3 weeks earlier. That's the maximum that we can do at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And if you are on the phone line, just a reminder to press *1 to add your name to the queue. And if you can, please state your name, affiliation, and to whom you'd like to address your question to. We would really appreciate it. Our next question comes from David Curley with the Discovery Channel.
Thank you very much. First, a question, David Curley from the Discovery Channel. Joel, you said there was an alert on the space station about cooling. Specifically, was that just that something was amiss with the Soyuz specifically? There's no commingling. I'm assuming that's just data from Soyuz inside the station. And Sergei, what was this loop and radiator responsible for cooling? Do you have a backup? Could you possibly re-enter if you weren't able to use, as you're not able to use this radiator and loop? Thank you.
All right, for my part of the question, we first saw the onboard video of the leak, and then through conversations with the Mission Control Center Moscow, they had pressure sensor indications that were showing a leak, and so that's how it was communicated to the flight control team.
It was not any special alert on the station. It was just monitoring of the ground team. And for my part of the question, talking about backup things, while Soyuz is docked to the station, we can cool crew compartment using chilled air from the station, and that's what we are doing right now. We lose capability to eject the heat from equipment compartment and crew compartment. And we have actually spare pumps in the loop, but we don't have spare loop, so we don't have extra opportunity to reject the heat because we lost all coolant. Talking about mode for space reentry, as soon as we start to power up equipment and as soon as crew is going to be inside crew compartment, temperature starts to rise. We don't know exactly how high it's going to happen, and our specialists in Russia and together with specialists in Houston are going to estimate the rate of rise of the temperature and what maximum temperature can be reached during different modes of reentry, nominal reentry, expedited reentry. So we will do this analysis for different modes and see if it's going to be safe for the crew and the equipment.
Did this loop cool anything other than the crew compartment?
it's actually, we have two loops. One internal loop, which could cool compartment, and this internal loop is coupled with external loop. So we lose capability of reject heat from external loop. So we still have some kind of averaging temperature inside cool compartment, but as soon as we close hatches and we lose capability to chill down cool compartment with chilled air from the station, temperature starts to rise. We will have only natural radiation from the vehicle, and it might be not enough to stable temperature. So as I said, we are assessing how high and how rapidly temperature will rise with all power sources inside the vehicle, including cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Chris Davenport with the Washington Post.
Hi, thank you very much. This is for Joel, just because I think I have a bad line too, and I'm having a very hard time hearing Sergei. Joel, I wonder if you could help me clarify in terms of the time frame, if you do have to send up MS-23 as a rescue vehicle, about when that would happen. I think I heard 2 to 3 weeks earlier. And then what, if that happens, what would happen to MS-22? Thank you.
Okay, I'll answer, and then Sergei, I'm sure, will listen, and he can give me any updates. But right now, we're scheduled for the rotation to occur in the March timeframe. Roscosmos is looking to move that up 2 weeks, 3 weeks. They're looking at late February to send up the next Soyuz vehicle. If it's decided, and it hasn't been done yet, but if it's decided that it's an uncrewed Soyuz, Roscosmos would plan to return the current Soyuz on orbit and collect the data so they can use that for future evaluations of missions. And Sergei, if you want to add anything, feel free.
Now, Joe, thank you for translating from Russian version of English to English version of English.
Thank you. And I know it is a little hard to hear Sergei on the line. We did have some technical difficulties this morning, but we are planning to send out a transcript after this call later today. So hopefully that will help folks on the line that are having a difficult time hearing him. We do have one more question in the queue from Steve Gorman with Reuters.
Yes, thank you very much. One of my questions is, had this leak occurred while the Soyuz MS-22 had been in flight? Would that have compromised the ability to control its flight, its direction and attitude and so forth? And if that's the case, does that render that spacecraft unusable unless the leak were to be fixed?
I also have very bad quality of sound. Do I understand correctly this question? What is going to happen if this flight would be in autonomous mode before getting with the station? Is it right?
Yeah, my question is, if the leak had occurred while the Soyuz was in flight in autonomous mode, would the leak itself, the propellant effect of the leak, cause problems in controlling the direction and attitude of the spacecraft while it was in flight?
No, force from leaking is relatively small, so attitude control would easily correct all effects from leaking of propellant. But if it's going to happen in autonomous flight before we dock with the station, then crew will probably go for expedited reentry on the ground. So we would probably cancel the mission.
And it looks like we do have a couple folks that are asking some follow-up questions. So we have Joey Roulette with Reuters.
Yeah, just quick question either for Sergei or Joel. If this hole was caused by space debris, for example, could that have been something that would be big enough to have tracked, or is the hole small, like too small to indicate that it was hit by something trackable? Thanks.
If it's determined as space debris, too small. Yes, I agree.
Thank you. And our last question in the queue is Jeff Faust with Space News.
Yeah, a question for Joel. I'm curious what NASA role is in this investigation. Are you have access to participation in any of the meetings going on in Russia to look at the status of the Soyuz?
And so, as you know, Jeff, we have a crew member on this vehicle, and so Roscosmos has reached out to us. We have tag-ups at my level. Sergei and I talk on a regular basis, and we also have tag-ups daily at the operational level in between the Mission Control Center Houston and Mission Control Center Moscow. And so the teams are going back and forth. We're constantly exchanging data. In fact, we talked a little bit about the meteor showers. We both looked at both Mission Control Center Houston and Mission Control Center Moscow looked at the direction of meteor showers and came up to the same conclusion. So the teams work together as we always have, and nothing has changed in that posture.
Great.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Sergei.
No, I just completely agree. And if we have some technical discussion among us or inside only on Russian side, then we share the result of the discussion with our partners.
Great, thank you so much. Well, that is the last question that we have in the queue today. So thanks to all who submitted questions, and thank you both Joel and Sergei for taking time out of your busy schedules to take some time to chat about this. So thanks again for joining us. That will wrap up today's briefing.